Max is 4 weeks old today. I was actually induced, and I was in the hospital for 4 days. I had him almost 48 hours after I went in. I think it was overwhelming, the fact that, I'm a first-time mom. So, you can read all the books that you want, but until you're in it, real world, going through it, you just don't know. For breastfeeding, for me, it's something that I wanted to do. It's something that I talked to my OB about when they asked. There was no hesitation from me. It's something that I immediately said yes to. It felt natural for me. I'm a very independent person, and I wanted to be able to do that for Max. So I had every intention of doing that. But then once I got to the hospital, there's so many variables that I didn't realize would be there. Would he latch? I didn't even know what that meant at this point. And turns out he wasn't latching, which was frustrating. And then I'm a very type A person, and so I'm thinking, oh my God, how much is he eating? Is he being fed? But I kept trying because I felt like that, as a mom and as a woman, what I should have been doing for him. And whenever he was getting extremely frustrated, he was starting to get a little jaundice in the hospital. He did lose some weight in the hospital. I had a night nurse come in, and she's like, look, I don't want you to feel like you have to do this, but we have formula bottles in the nursery. If you want me to feed him, I will. And at this point, I lose it. And I'm thinking, once I do that, there's no going back. And so I told her, at that moment, I made the best decision for Max, and I said, just do it. As soon as he took that first bottle, he was a totally different baby. And again, I still felt guilty, even though he is completely taken care of. So I get home, I make an appointment with a lactation consultant. I go in, I cried the entire time. She gives me options. She never pressured me to breastfeed. So I tried it. I gave it the whole college try. I said, you know what, I'm gonna try. And so I tried for a week. 8 times a day is what they suggest if you're going to exclusively pump instead of breastfeed. I was getting barely enough to feed him for a day. And you hear and read about these moms, and I was on this Facebook group because I have a couple of girlfriends who have chosen to exclusively pump. They get 13 ounces a sitting and 7 ounces every time they do it. And in my mind, I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And so out of that point of frustration, the next time I go to the pediatrician, I was like, she could tell in my face. And every time she would ask me about feeding Max, I would start crying. And she said, listen, the most important part of this journey is not about breastfeeding Max. It's about making sure that you're a happy and sane mother. Because, when you're on an airplane, the oxygen masks come down. What do they tell you? You put yours on before they put someone else's on. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of someone else. And so at that moment, I was like, I'm done. And so I went home, I took pictures of all of my stuff, I put it for sale online, have been formula feeding my son ever since, and we are both so happy. He's gaining weight just fine, and I'm sure no one knows the difference. Everyone that I've spoken to, whether it be the pediatrician, the OB, the lactation consultant, everyone, including myself, is in agreement that fed is best, and it's all about what works for you. And what's interesting enough is that I have a lot of friends who are moms, and now myself being a mom, that's afforded me the opportunity to get to know my mom friends on a different level. And people don't talk about that. We don't talk about, I had a miscarriage before I got pregnant with Max. I had no idea that so many people that I knew that were in my life had been in that same situation, because it's not things that we talk about. And it's okay to talk about those things, because I think talking about them makes them normal, or makes us feel less like a failure, or less likely to fall into this hole or this place where we don't feel like we have anyone to talk to about these things. And so while that was the best decision for me and for Max to go the formula route, I totally would have loved to have been able to breastfeed him. It just didn't work for us. And so I think the pressure of it's kind of crap, really, that women in general feel like they have to justify what they're doing. I think it's amazing that people breastfeed, or some people do a combination, or some people can't do it at all. You can't pour from an empty cup. And giving Max the best mom that I can be to him was really why I made that decision. So it had nothing to do with it being convenient or anything like that. At the end of the day, that's really what I was deciding, is to do what was best for my son, which I think makes me a good mom.